Hello and welcome here to Talk FCB and welcome back today to another video on the channel, and today we're going to be looking at something slightly different. We're going to be looking into the La Liga debate. Now if you've followed me on Twitter at all, if you know me at all, you will realise that I have very strong opinions on La Liga, and for the last few seasons I severely believe, and I still do, that it's a very, very underrated league. We're going to be looking at the Premier League, we're going to be looking at some other leagues as well, and having a look at exactly how underrated La Liga is and why the perception of it is like it is. So basically what I want to say is, last night we had a game which really outlined this. It was Sevilla against Liverpool, and Sevilla were both times Europa League winners in the last two seasons. Liverpool were coming into the game having finished 8th in the Premier League, and somehow Liverpool were massive favourites. I understand that Klopp has started something there. I understand they got a lot of good feeling going on at the club, but how on earth Liverpool went into that game as big favourites just shows the real, sort of underration of La Liga and Sevilla in general. I think Klopp underrated Sevilla yesterday. I think he thought they were going to be a little bit easier to play against than they were, and Unai Emery showed in that second half they were absolutely fantastic. He changed things around, and we not only have we got fantastic players in La Liga, we've got some really fantastic coaches and innovative coaches as well. And basically I'm just going to read out the list of Spanish European titles within the last 2 years, okay? We had a Champions League win in 2014, we had a Europa League win in 2014, we had a Super Cup win in 2014, we had a Club World Cup win in 2014. In 2015 we had a Champions League win, a Europa League win, a Super Cup win, and a Club World Cup win. And in the Champions League this season we're going to have a Spanish winner, we've had a Europa League winner, and we're also going to have the Super Cup winner. And quite frankly, it is incredible to see that this league is still being, by some people, it's called a 3-team league now. We've actually got a promotion. We're not known as a 2-team league anymore. It's a 3-team league. We're really moving up in the world. But how on earth this can be a 3-team league when consistently we get teams in the Europa League who absolutely destroy everyone? They really do. You saw Villarreal this season absolutely steamrolled their way to the semi-finals, and they froze at Anfield. They're a young team, they froze at Anfield under the pressure, but they were very close to reaching the final. In past seasons, we've had Athletic reach the final, we've had Valencia do quite well in the competition, even the likes of Real Betis come into the competition and do well, and in that season, they got relegated. Now, every time there's a talk about La Liga, you talk about the 3 big teams, and you say, well, why is there such a big gap between those 3 and the rest of the league? And people assume that the gap between those 3 and the rest of the league is because the rest of the league, and I quote, Graham Souness, an English pundit, said, the rest of the league is a lot of averageness. And he said yesterday that Sevilla would get beaten comfortably by Liverpool, and clearly that backfired. But basically, people think that because there's a huge gap between the top 3 and the rest of the league is poor. That is simply not the case. The problem you have is the top 3 are literally elite. They're the elite clubs, not only in Spain, but in the world football. Atletico Madrid, 2 Champions League final appearances in the last 3 years. Real Madrid, regular fixtures in the Champions League ladder stages. Barcelona, 3 Champions Leagues in the last 7 years. So clearly, these 3 teams are such a high level that there's going to be a gap no matter what league they're in, no matter who they're against. If Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid and Barcelona were in the Premier League, there would be a significant gap. There just would be, because these teams are far and away above other ones. Yes, of course, we talk about Real Madrid having a dip, but they do always find themselves in the Champions League ladder stages. Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone, you would struggle to get near them, and of course Barcelona, we've ruled Europe now for a number of years, and there would be a gap no matter what league you're in. And then you look at the teams below and you say, okay, then that they're just not competitive. It's not a competitive league, and that is what you get whenever you say La Liga has more quality, which quite clearly, that is obvious. That is quite clearly obvious in the European successes of the last few seasons compared to the Premier League. The Premier League have got absolutely nowhere near either European trophy. This season was very, very, very different to others. It was a massive achievement for Man City to reach the semi-final. They found that like a massive achievement just to reach a semi-final, an English club. And the same for the Europa League. Liverpool reaching the final was really billed as this incredible feat. But neither of them won the trophy, and yet again it's another season in Europe for England where they've not secured a single trophy in Europe. And I just think, if you look at the 2 leagues, right, this is what I want to look at. Because you're saying about competitiveness, and you're saying the teams in this league are not as good as the teams in the Premier League for competitiveness, okay? Okay, so let's just do a quick matchup. We're going to go down the leagues, and we're going to match first against first, second against second, and so on. So if Barcelona played Leicester, Barcelona win, okay? Quite simple. Arsenal play Real Madrid. I'd say Real Madrid will win that one. If Tottenham play Atletico Madrid all day long. And then you come to Man City against Villarreal. I'd probably go with Man City. So that's 3-1. Athletic against Manchester United. I would say that would be a draw, because I think, people obviously say, the reputation of Manchester United, but they played a few years ago actually when United were actually a much better team than they are now, and Athletic beat them, so I wouldn't get too carried away on that one. Celta Vigo against Southampton would be a cracking game, I really think so. I'd say a draw there as well. Sevilla in 7th against West Ham in 7th. I say Sevilla will win that one. Malaga against Liverpool. Liverpool will win that one. Sociedad against Stoke. That would be a decent game as well. Real Betis against Chelsea. Las Palmas against Everton. I think Everton have had a dreadful season. Las Palmas, excellent. Valencia against Swansea. Valencia. Espanyol against Watford. Probably Watford, to be honest. West Brom against Eibar. Very, very interesting game. That would be two really physical sides. I'd say a draw. Deportivo against Crystal Palace. Deportivo. Granada against Bournemouth. Probably Bournemouth. Sporting Gijón against Sunderland. That would be a really good game as well. Draw. And Rayo against Newcastle. I'd say Rayo. Rayo tactically very, very interesting under Paco Gemes. Getafe against Norwich. Again, decent enough game. And Aston Villa against Levante. Levante for sure. So what I'm saying is some of those games you might not agree with. Some of those you might say, you're being biased. That wouldn't be a draw. That would be a win. What I'm trying to say is, though, when you go down that list and you measure off the teams versus the teams in the other league, 5th versus 5th, 6th versus 6th, there's never a massive gap. You're never saying, the team from the Premier League would blow them apart. All those games there, the ones I said draw, they were all close. There was nothing to choose from them. So what I'm trying to say is, this is not a league that's not competitive. That is simply a get-out clause. That's an easy argument. That's a lazy argument. It's not it is a competitive league. And what I want to say is, as well, take a look at last weekend, the weekend before that. Levante, 20th in La Liga, relegated. They're already down. Atletico Madrid go to Levante knowing if they win, they are going to take the title race to the last day. Already relegated Levante beat Atletico Madrid by 2-1. And I just don't, because you always see it, you never see the small teams beating the big teams in La Liga. Well, don't you? Are you sure about that? When Pep Guardiola took over as Barcelona manager, we lost to newly promoted Numancia 1-0. We drew with Racing Santander. We lost at home to Hercules. And it's just a myth. It really is. I remember when Osasuna were in the division. And they were a nightmare, not only for us, but for everyone. The year Atletico Madrid won the league, Osasuna got relegated, yet beat Atletico Madrid 3-0, drew with Real Madrid, and beat us. And that is simple. That is what happens every single season. There are always shocks, but you will never hear people talk about them, simply because they don't know. They're talking about a league which they watch now and then when Barca and Real Madrid are on. Apart from that, they know nothing about it. And what I also want to say is, again, you often hear, this league is such an easy league. You see Real Madrid and Barcelona scoring 6 and 7 goals a game in some games. That must mean it's a terrible league. Last season, Southampton beat Sunderland 8-0. 8-0 it was. And a few seasons before that, Tottenham beat Wigan 9-1. Manchester City have put massive goals past people. And it happens. At the weekend, the last day of the season, Newcastle United beat Tottenham by 5-1. The last weekend of the season before that, Stoke City beat Liverpool by 6-1. So, because there's a lot of goals, does that mean it's not a competitive league? Is that what it means? I'm just not sure. I think there's a lot of arguments about La Liga, which people watch it now and again, think then they can base an opinion off it, and quite frankly, they are wrong. I'm not saying anything against the Premier League. It's an entertaining league. The atmospheres are good, and that's another thing as well. You hear people say on the television, the atmospheres at Spanish grounds simply aren't as good. You go to a lot of those Spanish games and you will see an atmosphere which is like no other. Barcelona, fantastic. Real Madrid, brilliant. Atletico Madrid Stadium is one of the best atmospheres in world football by a country mile. You go to San Mamés, it is rocking. The Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan with Sevilla, fantastic. Real Betis, you go there for the Sevilla derby, you'll see nothing else like it. When the Mestalla, when everybody's behind the team, no ground like it. Sporting Gijón, you should have seen that stadium, El Molinón, on the last day of the season, fantastic. And again, they only just stayed up on the last day. They drew with Real Madrid on the first day of the season, a relegation battling team getting points off the big boys. It doesn't happen, does it? I think it does. And again, I'm just saying, another instance I can think of is when I said at the start of this video that Real Betis made a good run in the Europa League. I think they got to the last 16 of the Europa League, and in this very same season, they got relegated. So in Europe, they got to the last 16 of the Europa League, and they got relegated. The strength of this league is consistently undermined. They may not have as much money as the Premier League, but what they do with that, they invest in their academies, they bring through players, they give local players a chance, they develop their tactics, they develop systems, because instead of spending money on players and bringing in players on huge wages, they've got players in there who know the club, they know the values, they know the city, and they play because they love football. They play because they want to be there, they understand the culture, they can all speak the same language, and I just think in La Liga, we've got it right. There's not a terrible amount of money here, but what we do is, and what the clubs around us do, they make the most of it. They've got tactics, and they work on that, and they work on systems which suit their style of play. They've got an idea, they've got a football plan. You only need to look at Sevilla and what Monchi has done there, the sporting director, working heavily alongside Unai Emery. If an English club set up like that last night, if they changed it tactically like Unai Emery did in the second half, and if they consistently lost their best players, that English club would be given incredible status. They'd be saying, we've never seen anything like this before. They lose their best players every season, yet they've won the European trophy 3 times in a row. But it's Sevilla, you don't hear about it. But what they do, and what many La Liga clubs do, is really incredible. So like I say, this is not a dig against the Premier League, the Serie A, the Liga and Bundesliga. I'm not really worried about any of those. I just feel that right now, as it has been for many, many seasons, La Liga is simply not getting enough credit. Whether it's the best league in the world, that's up to you to decide. I personally believe it's the best league in the world in terms of quality, and I also believe it's the most entertaining league in the world. But that is open to opinion. So you will have your own on that, but all I'm trying to say is you hear consistent arguments about no competitiveness, that's wrong. Lack of quality, that's wrong. Lack of atmosphere, that's also wrong. And I just think everything that you hear is based on opinions by people who simply do not watch it. If you watch this league, if you watch it over a period of season, if you watch all of the teams, you will grow to love it. I assure you of that. So I'm sure we're going to have a lot of comments, a lot of opinions down below, guys. I'm very, very interested to hear those, so let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I will see you very, very soon. But until next time, as always, Vesca El Barça.